So people people tend to ask me like, "Hey, why are you always so negative towards black people? You must hate your own kind. You must hate your skin." And it's funny because my Facebook name was Eric Misfit Benson. And they would say, "Oh, you're a misfit, huh? So you think you're a misfit. You think you're unworthy and you hate yourself." And it's like, that title misfit is a long story behind it, but it has nothing to do with like self-love or self-loathing or anything like that. The short version of the story is that it's based off a song that's based off a Bible scripture that says we are the Messiah's misfits. That's a whole nother story. But the whole point is, so someone asked me recently, why are you so negative towards black people? You only talk negative towards black people. Here's the thing. The biggest issue in the black community is the unwillingness to be accountable for our actions and blaming everything that goes wrong on outsiders, white people or the government. Right? If your neighbor shoots somebody in cold blood, or excuse me, if your neighbor gets killed in cold blood, and then the guy around the corner gets killed in cold blood, on an unrelated case, you won't blame the killers. You'll blame the government. You'll blame the white man for having drugs or guns in your neighborhood, right? Now, I know all about the history of systemic racism and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, we all make decisions. And the biggest failure of so-called black leadership that I see is no one challenges black people to be better. No one. You look at the people who are revered by black people and who are looked at as leaders. Some people think of Barack Obama because, first black president. He didn't really challenge black people to be better. He did in terms of like parenting. He's like, well, a dad, having the dad in a kid's life is super important. And, statistically, it kind of shows that when the dad's not around, all kind of chaos happens in that kid's life, especially if they're a male, a black male. But he didn't really speak on violence. With him being like, in the government in Chicago, in Illinois, and that sort of thing, he never really challenged people, their behavior there, or the subculture of violence that exists. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Jay-Z and Beyonce, because I've seen people quoting them lately like they're some kind of experts. But basically anyone who's respected by the black community publicly, you will not hear them challenge black people to do better. You definitely won't hear the politicians do it, especially the white liberals, like the Democrats, like Hillary, Bernie Sanders. They don't challenge black people to be better. They make excuses. And so and I see the effect that it has. Nobody takes responsibility for anything. Nobody changes anything. Nobody stops doing self-destructive behaviors because they blame it on the white man. They blame it on slavery. They blame it on the government. They blame it on everybody but themselves. And no one is accountable for themselves. Now, you hear people talk all the time about black power and, all of this stuff. But when your mindset is one that all of my problems are because of outside forces, then that makes you a slave. Regardless of what you claim about how powerful you are, if you have no control over your circumstances, you're a slave. So you can yell black power all you want, but your version of black power is really a kind of victimhood in a slave mentality. And I'm not saying that to diss nobody or insult people, but that's a slave mentality. I can't do anything. And as a result of that mentality, you end up, if all of the problems are because of someone else, then that means that they are the someone else has all of the power to change them. So as a result, you don't try to change things yourself. The community doesn't rally together to change things themselves. The community seeks this outside force and asks them to change things for them. So it's like this situation is so bad because of the government. So we need the government to change it, which is ironic because the government, historically, the government is the most oppressive force in all of mankind. So it's like you're going to have this mindset that nothing will change unless the government does something for us or stops doing something to us. Is that power or is that slavery? That's not black power. Or nothing can change until the white man stops oppressing us. We cannot change our stuff. Or we are so mentally messed up because of what the white man has done to us historically. My people are so messed up that we can't function as a community properly. Is that power or is that weakness? That's weakness. Now, if that's how you feel, then that's how you feel. But understand the position that you're really in. You're in a position of weakness and vulnerability and kind of slavehood. And if that's the case, even if that is the case, if everything you say is right, if all of these problems were completely 100% the government's fault, the white man's fault, the wealthy people's fault, etc., if that was truly the case, why do you spend all of your time trying to put your trust in them to change it? That's even more of a reason for you to rally the troops and say, look, we're on our own. All we got is us. The only way our community is going to change is if we do it. Because the white man is oppressing us. The wealthy is oppressing us. The government is oppressing us. But instead, what the quote unquote black leaders, they don't do that. They don't instill a sense of power in the black people or gumption or you can do it or whatever. They instill victimhood and fear. And the politicians, the Democrats who run a majority of black areas, they don't instill you. Think about it. Think about this. The Democratic policies that are promoted, and someone's gonna say, well, what about the Republicans? The Democratic policies that they promote, do they promote empowerment or do they promote reliance on them? Because what the Democrats do is they don't say, hey, you guys need a lot of stuff. I want to equip you so that you can get the things you need. Education and, jobs, whatever the problems is in the black community. Their mentality isn't that poverty is an issue in the black community. So we're going to give you the means to take you out of poverty. We're going to give you the means to lift yourself out of poverty. No, their mentality is there's a lot of poverty in the black community. Here's some money. Oh, that didn't work. If that doesn't work, come back to me and I'll give you more money. It's like, you ever watch one of those like one of those hood movies, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's not just hood, but you ever have a movie where you have like the drug dealers and then you have like a young kid that plays basketball? There's a movie specifically that comes to mind. I don't know the name of it, but let's say you had this movie where you got the young kid who's got good intentions, but they're poor. And they have like the struggling single mom and all of that, and they're poor. But then the drug dealer is offering the kid money. And it's like, oh, you need new sneaks. How you going to go to the NBA playing those? You're sliding all over the floor. Or they're buying their mom a car. And then the mom is like, stay away from my kid. Don't give them that money. And, she's telling her kid, don't take that money. I want you to stay away from them bad guys, right? But that person, that drug dealer or whoever, they're setting that kid up. They're luring them in. And that's what the Democrats do. They don't empower you. They don't empower you so that you can sustain yourself. They've created a system so that they'll help you. So they say. They'll help you. but it's dependent on them. You have to keep going back to them. Now, the Republicans, on the other hand, the Republicans, generally speaking, the Republican philosophy is that you don't just keep giving people stuff because you're not really helping them by doing so. What you need to do is you give them some. You don't just give them, you don't make them so comfortable with you giving them stuff that they never try to change things for themselves. They say, we're going to help you with some things, but you need to be accountable for your actions. We're not going to just keep giving you things. At some point, you need to man up and start handling business. So what we're going to do is we'll help you in so much as you're willing to be prepared to take care of yourself. It's like you know, a homeless guy living by the river, right? And a Democrat comes along and says, this homeless guy is living by the river. He doesn't have any food. I'm going to fish for you. And then they fish and they give the homeless guy some fish. And they're like, here, this will sustain you for 2 weeks. When you need more fish, let me know. And then the person, they never learn how to fish because there's a person who knows how to fish who always comes around every so often. And this person kind of knows how to get the better fish. So he just doesn't fish. And then when that person doesn't come around, he doesn't eat. But when that person comes around, he eats pretty good. And the person who's doing the fishing for him, the Democrat, it's like, oh, I care about you. How are you doing? You know, what else you need? You know, and whatever you need, I'll give you. And when I come back, just let me know what else you need. So this man, this homeless person, is completely dependent on the fisherman. Whereas a Republican mindset is, you know, I'll give you 3 days worth of fish. I'll give you 3 days worth of fish, but I'm going to teach you how to fish for yourself. Oh, you don't want to learn how to fish for yourself? I'm still only going to give you 3 fish. I'm not giving you a whole bunch worth of fish. It's up to you to learn for yourself. Now, when you're ready to learn for yourself, I will give you fish as long as you are learning and actually trying. So that's the Republican mentality. It's not that they're racist. It's not that they don't care or they don't want to help people. It's that they just have the mentality of the role of the government isn't to babysit you. The role of the government is to protect you enough so that you can build yourself up. It's an entirely different philosophy. So anyway, back to why I'm so negative. Because whenever bad things happen to black people, the black person's responsibility is never challenged in a situation publicly. Never. And I've had people even say, like, well, hey, you know, this is the kind of thing you discuss behind closed doors. You don't put your business out there in the street. But here's the thing. When it comes to white people and systemic racism and, you know, just quote unquote racist Trump supporters and you want white people to be open and honest about the sins of white people, but you don't want to be open and honest about the sins of black people. Do you understand that actually turns people into extremists? That actually leads white people to becoming extremists. Because what happens is, if they're a person that's trying to seek common ground, the less you seek common ground, the more extreme you are in insisting on one particular position that opposes them, naturally, you're going to create the same response in those people going the other way. And the same thing happens with white people who are racist. You know, white people who are racist, they can actually turn black people racist. Now, everybody's responsible for their own ideology and their own mind, but you know what I mean. You start seeing a lot of white racist people, then it's going to naturally start making you look at them a little differently. That's just how humans work. It goes both ways. And you can't be like, white people, you need to face this. You need to deal with this. But the black community have all these problems and you don't want to face it. You don't want to deal with it. And that's just that. Not only does that ruin any kind of interracial relations, but it's self-destructive. It's like a drug addict who's in denial. So that's all I see from the so-called leaders of the black community. The only person I can think of off the top of my head that's like really, really known that has challenged black people was when Dr. Umar started, he went on his rant against like rappers. But generally speaking, you don't really hear people challenging the black community to do better. And I'm gonna give one last example, and I think is a good one. You know the movie Karate Kid, right? Or those movies like Karate Kid, those I can do it type movies, Rocky, movies where it's like the underdog, right? Those movies, they set it up good because in the beginning, you see that underdog, you see that fighter, you see the kid getting bullied, you see the high school team, the football team that sucks, they can't win a game. And then they're painting the picture of this is how bad the situation is for the protagonist. And then you have a teacher or mentor or coach come along and show faith and confidence in this loser while nobody else cares. And then as the movie progresses, there'll be a time where that coach will put that loser, they'll put them in a position that they're not prepared for because they're like, I have confidence in you, right? So like Karate Kid, well, he had like a little bit of training, I think, and he went and fought someone and actually did pretty good or something like that. Or you'll have this football team or the kid that's like the teeniest kid who never plays, and the coach will put him in, and they always show this guy sucking in the beginning, but the coach is like, come on, you can do it, and he'll give him a pep talk or that sort of thing. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, they overcome the obstacle. So the black community is like Karate Kid. The black community is the weakling in the beginning, and not because I don't think that black people are powerful or that sort of thing. It's because of the mentality. Black people are the weakling at the beginning. The black community is the weakling in the beginning of the movie. And what happens is our leaders, instead of being that coach that says, I have faith in you, you can overcome this obstacle, I'm going to train you, and you're going to overcome that bully or that undefeated team or whatever. Our leaders don't do that. They don't. What the leaders do instead is, look how big that bully is. Look how fast those linebackers are. We can't beat them. The only way we can beat them, the only way you're going to beat that bully is if we tell them to change something about the way that they're operating. And that's not power, that's weakness. So the black community, because we're not getting that Mr. Miyagi, or we're not getting that Coach Carter, we're not getting that coach that's like, you can do it. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to challenge you enough so that you can do it. We don't get that. So we're always in the beginning of the movie. We're always that wimpy Karate Kid that doesn't have any training, that's looking at the bully, take all the girls, or whatever, however way you want to look at it. We need leaders who are going to challenge the black people to say, you can overcome all of this, regardless of what's going on out there. I believe in black power. And because I believe in black power, I'm not going to let you sit there and go 0-16 and never win a game. I'm not going to let you sit there and lose every fight because you're failing or you got wrong technique. Because I believe in you, I'm going to train you, and I'm going to get you to believe in yourself. And that's not what we're getting. So that's why I challenge the mindset. What I'm challenging is I'm challenging the negative mindsets and mentalities that leave people in the victim mindset in the beginning of the movie, where it's like, it's so bad for me. It's so bad for me. All right, one more analogy and I'm done. Imagine you're a boxer, right? Imagine you're a boxer and you got to fight against the champion. Let's say you're a sucky guy. You got to fight against the champion, and the black community would be the sucky guy, right? Because we've been oppressed and all of this, blah 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 blah. And the champion is like the white man or the government, or whatever you think your oppression is. Let's say you go out round one, you fighting as hard as you fighting, and that fighter knocks you down, knocks you off your feet. You go flying in the air, you land. Right? What does an empowering coach do? An empowering coach who really believes in you, who believes you have the power to succeed, they're going to say, get up, right? And you barely, picture the movie. You're in slow motion, groggy. You don't really know what's going on. And you look in the corner and you can see your coach, get up, you can do it, right? You might get up, but it's like the whole point is he's believing in you. He's egging you forward. He's saying you can do this, even though it doesn't feel like it, even though it doesn't seem like it, you can do it. What if your trainer, what if you got knocked down and you hear your trainer saying, that guy really knocked you out. He is so big. He is so strong, right? And you're trying to gather yourself to get back up into this fight. And your leader is saying, the opposition is so tough. The opposition is so bad. He knocks you down so bad. Your face is busted. Are you really going to get up and fight? You might. It's going to be much more harder because psychologically you have to deal with the challenges yourself. But then the person who's supposed to believe in you is kind of making it, they're heaping more negativity on you. So to me, that's what the black leaders do. The black leaders, they advocate for the community, but they advocate a victimhood, saying we need help. They don't advocate a stance of power. They're the trainer in the corner saying, you got knocked out so bad, man, I don't know, he ain't even sweating. We ain't gonna never overcome this until they do something about that champion. All right, so that's why I'm always challenging black people. Our mentalities, our subcultures are self-destructive, and we refuse to acknowledge them. And the so-called leaders, the so-called politicians who claim to advocate for black people, they don't advocate power, they advocate weakness. And I'm challenging that mindset. We need to have the mentality that we can change the things in our community. We are somebody. We don't need to beg the so-called oppressor for help. That's my mentality.